Hello, World Religions, Philosophy 2200. It's good to quote unquote see you all again this week. So here we are. It's week 7. You are almost halfway done with this course. Now, here's what's going to happen. If you look at this little schedule here, which hopefully you have printed out and you keep it in your textbook, so that you always know what to read. You'll notice that we are in week 7, the second unit of Chinese religions, and then next week is spring break! Woo! So I don't plan to give you any assignments over spring break. I might post some review materials, because right after spring break, you have the midterm. But what I hope is that you can have some enjoyment and rest during spring break. If you do just feel a need to do schoolwork, then I would encourage you to catch up on any readings that you missed. Watch any of my lectures that you missed. I do hope you watch these lectures. I put a lot of time into these lectures, so please watch them. Then the week, so spring break is 8th through the 14th, and then the week that begins March the 15th, what I'll do, on Monday of that week, I will post, if I haven't done it already, on Monday of that week, I will post some review materials to get you ready for the midterm exam. Now, the midterm exam is going to be a lot like the quizzes that you've been taking every single week. It'll have 26 questions. Some of those questions will be short answer questions that you will need to answer by typing an answer in. Most of the questions will be multiple choice or true false, just like the ones you do every single week in your quiz. When you start the midterm, you will have 60 minutes to finish it. So what you want to do before you start the midterm is make sure you've got your notes consolidated where you can get to the information quickly. So I'll post some review materials on Monday, March the 15th, unless I did it sooner. And then sometime that week, when you feel like you're ready, you will log in and you will attempt the midterm exam. You get one attempt. And then the week after that, which is March the 22nd, we will begin the second half of this course. Okay, enough about that. Let's talk about Chinese religions now. You know that the Chinese religions, the religions that originated in China, based on that ancient Chinese religious view that I told you about last week, those two religions are Confucianism and Taoism. But, I want to tell you about this. I forgot this. I should have told you this last week. This is the Chinese character for the word Ren. Now, Ren is that concept that is very important in Confucianism. It means human-heartedness. It is that virtue of treating other people, seeing other people as equally human and equally deserving of dignity, treating other people the way you want to be treated. This Chinese character really reveals something about that concept. What you have over here on the left side of the character, that's a pictograph that means a human being. Okay, the thing that's standing up like this, that's a human being. And then the two horizontal slashes, that's a pictograph that means the number 2. So the character for Ren is basically a human being and the number 2, as if to say that Ren is about the relationship between two human beings. The virtue of Ren is the virtue of being able to get along with others. Now, of course, Confucius had things to say about relationships, not just between two people, but between the family and between all of society. But all boils down to this character, which is made up of the symbol for a human being and the symbol for two. This is how we get along. Okay, I wanted to show you that. I just think that's an interesting characteristic. Confucianism, Taoism. I left you last week with the question, how did these become religions? I mean, these are basically philosophies, at least what I told you about last week. So how did these philosophies become organized, institutional religions? Well, we're going to talk about that. Remember the 7 dimensions of religion from Ninny and Smart, and this is what your textbook is organized around. You need to know these. You need to know these because they're going to help you to understand, to study and understand any religion in the world. These are things that the religions have in common. These are the family resemblances. And the first 6 are what your book talks about, and then Ninny and Smart added the 7th one later, but you need to know these. These might be on the midterm. Hint, hint. Okay, so the first dimension is called sacred narrative. It is sometimes also called mythology. Mythology does not mean myth the way that we use it nowadays, meaning it's not true. Mythology, the point's not whether it's true or not true. The point is that it is sacred narrative stories that have been handed down, traditional stories that have been passed on from generation to generation to generation. And these stories are usually about how the world was created, who or what created the world, our place in the world. These sacred narratives are often stories about the heroes of a particular religion, stories about the founder of the religion, if the religion has one. So stories about the Buddha, stories about Jesus, stories about Muhammad, stories about the various deities that you find in Hinduism. Sacred narrative. All religions have those. Do Confucianism and Taoism have sacred narratives? Yes, indeed. You've been reading some of them. The second dimension is doctrine. Doctrine is what to believe. What do you believe about what's true? What do you believe about the meaning of life? What do you believe about the God or gods that your religion worships? Notice that doctrine is what you believe, and that is different from number 6. Number 6, ethics, is on how to behave. Sometimes people get those a little bit confused. But doctrine is more about, the teaching about beliefs. So do we have that in Confucianism and Taoism? Most certainly. Again, you've been reading some of those. Confucianism and Taoism might not be as strict when it comes to doctrine as some of the Western religions like Christianity, Judaism, Islam. The Western religions are very concerned about doctrine, about what do we teach, what are we supposed to believe, what are we not supposed to believe. Confucianism and Taoism might not be as strict on that, but there is doctrine, there is teaching about what to believe. Number 3. Ritual. Ritual are the sacred practices, usually associated with worship, but not always. Ritual could include meditation rituals in Buddhism or Hinduism. Ritual could include the very complex directions for performing puja in Hinduism. Ritual could include, for example, Christian baptism, Holy Communion in Christianity, bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah in Judaism. So do Confucianism and Taoism have special ceremonies, special practices that are carried out by the faithful? Yes, indeed they do. Number 4, institutional expression. This is the social dimension. This is how a religion organizes itself. This is whether a religion has, special groups of people like a church or a mosque, or monasteries that have certain practices, groups of people. Institutional expression has to do with who's a member. How do you become a member? It has to do with who the leaders are. How do you choose leaders? How do you set leaders aside? As a Christian pastor, I was ordained. That means the bishop laid hands on me and set me aside as a leader. That's part of the institutional expression. So, does Taoism have institutions? Does Confucianism have institutions? Are there leaders who are set apart by definite rituals and definite understandings of how to be a leader? Yes, yes, yes. 5th one, experience of the transcendent. This would be the experience of God or gods, or even, for example, in Buddhism, it's not so much about experiencing a god, it's about the experience of enlightenment. So, is experience an important part of Confucianism and Taoism? Maybe not to quite the extent in Confucianism, but it's still there. Taoism, yes, definitely. Taoism's all about experience. It's about wu wei, effortless action. It's about living in harmony with the Tao and experiencing that mystical understanding of the force, the qi. And then number 6, ethics, how to behave. Confucianism is all about ethics. It's all about propriety, proper behavior, how you are supposed to conduct yourself in society. Ethics, obviously, that's the part of religion a lot of people kind of automatically think of. You think of things like the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness. You think of the ethical teachings that are found in Islam. So, are there ethical teachings in Taoism and Confucianism? Yes. And then finally, number 7, the material dimension. This would be the art and architecture of a religion. The art and the architecture. So, in Christianity, you have these beautiful churches, and a lot of them have stained glass. That's an example of the material dimension. In Islam, you have mosques, and you have Islamic art. That's an example of the material dimension. In Hinduism, you have temples. You have the statues of the deities. In Buddhism, you have temples and you have statues of the Buddha. So what about Confucianism and Taoism? Do they have a material dimension? The material dimension also could include, by the way, the special garments that the leaders wear, the robes that the clergy wear and the priests wear as they're carrying out the ceremonies. It could also include those special objects that are used during ceremonies. So like in Christianity, we often have special cups for Holy Communion. So all that's in the material dimension. Does Confucianism and does Taoism have a material dimension? Most certainly. Take a look at this. This is the Temple of Confucius in Beijing, China. Now, in some ways, this is more just a memorial to Confucius. But the thing is, they do ceremonies there. They make sacrifices to the spirit of Confucius. They do certain rituals there. This is a Taoist temple. This one is actually in the Philippines, and you can see the yin-yang symbol there. You can see the kneelers where people kneel before the 3 deities there. Here's a Confucian ceremony from South Korea. Look at the vestments. Look at the special objects. Look at the officiants are dressed a certain way. And then finally, a Taoist ceremony in Malaysia. So these are definitely organized institutional religion.